Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Nadex Morning Analysis, where we take a look at what's going on in the markets, some hot spots, and try to give you some ideas on where you might want to be looking for potential opportunities today. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me is Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. Before we get into the markets, I do need to share that trading may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk, and that this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. Now, for today, I just kind of want to tee up. I mean, there's a lot going on today.
That's already happened.
Yeah. Oh, let's switch that. So
Yeah.
let me just kind of tee up. We've got U.S. stimulus talks that are being hotly debated, but money is coming, just a matter of when and how much.
Yeah.
The global pandemic out of control. It sounds like the vaccines are rolling out slowly. I mean, this is going to take a lot longer than anyone had originally thought. We thought, oh my God, the vaccine is here, we're saved. I mean, it could be another half a year just trying to get people vaccinated. Europe, they had some economic numbers come in. They are in a double dip recession. So economic foundation not looking good in Europe, and not looking so hot in the US either. The markets are paying attention. Global equities dipped overnight. Everything sold off. And it wasn't just equities, it was commodities as well. And then we've got our crude oil inventory coming out later this morning, although that might be moot. So Brian, where should we start today? I'm thinking Europe is probably where we ought to start.
So I mean, we're deep into the European session right now. You guys, for those of you that are newer to trading, understand there are 3 sessions during the day. As much as we would like to believe that the world revolves around New York and Chicago, it doesn't. European sessions start at about 2-3 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time over in the UK, and that's considered really the start of the trading day. That's been the hot session. I've been it a few different times. I know it's very hard, for East Coasters to trade that one. West Coasters got to stay up a little bit late to do it, but a lot of the movement has already happened today. And, as I mentioned yesterday with the upcoming news, and actually multiple days this week, today was the day for news, getting all the services, manufacturing, PMI, and I had 2 predictions. Actually, I guess 3. I'd kind of unfortunately swapped my euro and my pound. None of them are really great. The French and the German data came in better than expected, but well below 50. So again, signifying kind of I think this is like a 7-month low or 8-month low for German flash services right now. Again, better than expected. They expected 45.1, but came in at 46.8. But again, kind of a miss there. The pound, unfortunately, started off very, very weak with retail sales. You guys can see it up here, the kind of the 2 glowing greens. Pound dollar's down 71. You can see, the euro pound is up 54. Horrible retail sales for the pound, and then they followed it up at 4:30 this morning with, again, very worse than expected flash and services PMI. And again, 38 is very, very low. It was supposed to be lower at 45, but 38 is not good. And again, right below, I mentioned this a little bit later, but Canada's over here again. Our numbers to the north. I said that I expected this to be high, and it definitely was much higher. So anyway, pound is not doing well. I read yesterday talking Boris. Actually, we mentioned it yesterday, I believe. Boris saying that they have not seen any benefit to the lockdown yet. For those of you that didn't know, they re-locked down in January, but they said it is too soon to see any of the results yet. But seeing them still kind of heading in that trajectory, seeing the retail sales numbers as low as they are, seeing the flash services and manufacturing PMI, not really a good place. And we talked about the pound being kind of at a rock bottom, but man, they are trying to find the absolute bottom, it looks like, before creating any type of recovery. So, as far as what a chart looks like, here's kind of a trade we had set up. And it's an area that we've mentioned a few different times this week, and even before that, getting up to this 137.56. And you can see, really, and again, I'll do this so you guys can, I'm going to mark this off here in blue, but that European session started, this right here where you guys see the yellow, that's the European session. I'll make this a little bit bigger so we can kind of get a little bit crisper of a view. That's the European session to where we are right now. So you can see there was a lot of movement. We had a top kind of being put in. We had talked about this yesterday. This area here saying, hey, this could be the top. We'd like it to go just a bit farther. That's a little bit more conservative of an entry, but sometimes we don't get our exact entry, at least in the spot world. And again, that's why Nadex is nice. But we've rallied back down. We've really kind of, we've this has been a strong push to the downside. We were looking to go short. I'll erase those now so nobody else thinks that this is what we're currently in. But right now, seeing this, if you guys can see it right here, this 136.36. Actually, let me do this real quick. Give you my little makeshift cursor. You can see with price coming down to this level, this is an area where prices ran in, based, and then kind of tested itself off of. So this is definitely a possible reversal for today. And the reason I say that is because we've had nothing but negative news for the pound this morning. And the result is, again, this pound getting weaker, dollar strengthening. Well, now the pound is done news for the day, and it's the United States' turn to start releasing our headlines, releasing our data. And
Right.
again, looking at what we have coming, well, guess what? We have our flash manufacturing and our services data. Both of them are expected to be lower. Imagine if one of these two breaks 50, what that's going to look like for the US dollar.
So,
yeah. And looking at everybody else besides Canada, everybody else's numbers is way lower. So
we should all move to Canada.
Hey, I have a Canadian wife, so I could be in a good scenario. But and in regards to COVID too, I mean, you mentioned COVID vaccines. I just found out last night my in-laws, who are both in their 60s, mid to late 60s, they were just informed that they may be able to get the vaccine late fall is what their doctor is telling them right now.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy. Canada doesn't have as many doses; they weren't allotted as many, and just the way that they're doing it with first responders in Canada. I mean, mid to late 60s, and they were told hopefully by fall they'll be able to get the vaccine.
And they said the same thing in Germany. They're looking out at September as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is going to weigh on the economies globally. Now, let me just
absolutely.
Let's take a look. I just want to jump over to the Nadex platform. We talk about that pound dollar opportunity. You're watching the trend happen. I'm actually going to come in a little bit closer here to what we're seeing right now. And here you're talking about these levels right here where we might see a bounce. Again, we'll see what happens when the U.S. PMI numbers come out. But there, you do get a little bit of a bounce. There might be, some binary options that, with relatively, lower risk, higher potential reward. And remember, all these are either going to 0 or 100. There might be an opportunity to play a little bounce in here today in the pound dollar. You got to keep an eye on it, and particularly around the U.S. PMI numbers that are coming out later today. All right. The other thing I think, let's. I know we'll do a rundown of the equity indices because I mean it's and everything else, even gold, silver, everything is getting hammered. But before we do that, let's just take a look over at the wild ride in oil.
Yeah, sure. Let me bring that one up. Yeah, so this is something we've seen. For those of you that know, I mean, we've mentioned it earlier this week as well, that this week oil inventory reports today at 11 o'clock. I'd say for about the last 2 months, though, we've had most of the oil movement happen during the European session. Now, when you have PMI, and again, that's a purchasing managers index for things particularly like manufacturing, when those don't come up good, those are kind of the goods and services that the manufacturers are purchasing to produce goods for everybody else. When those are not good, it's kind of a leading indicator. This is kind of what your gold looks like. Now, yesterday I mentioned, I showed you guys these two areas where we were going to probably see a little bit of a hiccup. And again, we based here. Yesterday I drew this. I don't remember if I drew it for this session for Nadex or for my students in the webinar after. But I was like, yeah, this is what I expected to do for the day. And you can see we ended up hammering down, ran right into the blue area based. And then again, in the overnight, this is a 30-minute chart. So this is 3 o'clock right here. I'll do the same thing like I did in the other chart. Here's your 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock number, and that's where we are now. That's how much movement we've had, down from 52.50 all the way down to 51.44 or 52.50, right around where we're at right now. So again, $1 worth of movement. Historically, when we look at oil inventory reports, typically for a decent size miss, we have about $1 to $1.50 worth of movement that occurs. last week I mentioned looking at the way price had happened, I expected oil inventory to come in exactly as expected, and it literally came in as exactly as expected. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. This week with all the movement in, I feel like a lot of the data has already been out there. Not that again, I can't say this that somebody has the report, but like I said, typically when you see this much movement ahead of time, a lot of the movement for the actual report has already been released. Now, I'm going to zoom back a little bit so you guys can see it. If you look to the left of where price is, so here's where, let me actually change this chart. I'll change this to like blue, right? If you look to the left of where the bottom of this chart is, you guys can see, and again, hopefully you can follow the cursor. This is an area where we have had buyers step in the past. So it is a level where, again, with this big push down, again, remember the market works in two ways, impulse and then correction. This could be an area where we do have some sort of a bottom today, regardless of what the oil inventory report news is. Again, you would say, well, how does it go higher? Does that mean we have a big down draw in oil? Maybe we could, and then we could have one of those situations where it should be sending, a large surplus. You could see a large surplus, and then this thing could turn around and run back up into the $52 range. That's just how it works. But again, on a global basis, seeing record cases everywhere, not necessarily the best situation for oil as far as global demand goes. And again, like you said, it's the end is not here yet. So.
No, and I think that could be a lot of the story versus we always think oil is supply and demand driven. We got to remember that it also can represent people's forecast for economic activity. And if economic activity is going to decline or continue to decline, that really does not bode well for oil, along with the supply demand component of it. So oil has gotten hammered pretty severely here. You can see coming down when it was up near 54, and we're all the way down here in the 51. You're actually seeing a little bit of a bounce, and it seems to be looking for a base right in here now. I think oil could be another interesting one. Binary options. What do you think is going to happen here if you're looking for that bounce? Thinking even no matter what the number is, there might be a way to potentially play that with binary options. And again, it's limited risk, limited reward, so that if something totally crazy were to happen, you know what your potential losses are before you even get into the trade.
But, and the pullback right now is coming back to an area. I'd call it kind of a sawtooth for my students. There's three candles on the 30-minute, and what it does is we have three progressively lower wicks that are kind of stabbing higher. That's typically indicative of having some sellers in there too. So, like I said, the oil release at 11, the way to play this is probably to kind of see what the opening feeling is, see what traders do with it. And then once it's kind of stabilized after the initial kind of open, that's when you would kind of jump into something along these lines. But right now, with kind of rallying up right before the U.S. Open, I would say that it's kind of looking for more sellers to step in. So it's an interesting play. But like I said, news is always a little bit different of a scenario than just your typical kind of play. So this really can go in either direction right now.
Yep. So there you go. Some ideas. You got to make your determination on what you want to do, but expect to see some movement, some volatility in oil. Hey, Brian, before we wrap it up for the day, I don't know if there's, you just want to do a quick little rundown. We mentioned the equities. Everything is being sold off. Gold's being sold off. Silver is being sold off. I don't know if it's just a real quick.
Yeah, already today, the U.S. market hasn't even opened right now. I'll just drag the trading review because it's easy on the top. Let me blow this up real quick so you guys can see it. If you're looking at some of these numbers at the top in here, you can see, we have crude oil down this, Bitcoin is way up, gold is down, is down huge as well. Everything right now in this European session has been crazy. NASDAQ is finally starting to take a little bit of a bounce. Silver is down 2.5% already today. So, these are big things. And again, talking about that stimulus, talk is talk, but at this point, we need to see actual concrete numbers with it. And again, if we do get those concrete numbers, what I would expect is, gold and silver probably to find a bottom here and go higher. I would expect the indices, depending on what the numbers look like, and if they're good, to go a bit higher as well. And then also stabilization in oil, but again, a weaker dollar. Things like the dollar CAD. Again, I mentioned before that I would, just real fast recap it. Dollar CAD, Canadian retail sales were awesome. And it just happens to be in a level right now as well that, again, running into an hourly supply that we mentioned earlier this week. So A lot of stuff today. I think it's going to be an interesting open. And again, hopefully we get some concrete numbers on the stimulus. People want to know. That uncertainty is what is really affecting the markets right now.
Agreed. All right. Well, with that, if you've got any questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. We're here to help. Please email us if you've got any questions. If you've got any questions for Brian, you can reach him at support@keeptradingsimple.com. And with that, I'd just like to let you guys get ready. The U.S. equities open in 15 minutes. Everything's looking a little weak. We actually overnight getting a little bit of a bounce here this morning off of that, but everything is still down. Should be an active day in the markets. With that, we will catch you on Monday morning. Everyone, good luck in the markets today and enjoy your weekend.